俺の拳を試すか Come on!
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Slovenly Gamer Podcast. I am your host, Milton, and on this week's show, I got something very special for you guys. Now, you guys know I cover a plethora of topics on this show, anime, zombies, horror movies, different things like that, video games, of course. A lot of my FGC friends, always coming on the show and always having like really fun conversations. But today on the show, I have the creator of one of my favorite YouTube channels. And how I came across this was one day I was watching maybe a larger YouTube channel like Jeremy Johns or something, and this little thing came up with like good bad flicks, and it was like Dragon Slayer or some like really obscure movie from back in the day. I watched it and it was like the best thing I've ever seen, and I literally sat down over like 2-3 days and watched every single video in this dude's lineup. Folks, welcome the one and only, the creator of Good Bad Flicks, the awesome YouTube channel, Cecil Trachenburg. Cecil, what's up, man? Welcome.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you so much for being on here, and thank you for creating Good Bad Flicks. I gotta tell you, man, like, it's so awesome. Like, I have questions. I have so many questions pertaining to this channel. I have so many, like, dude, I knew you were legit. Obviously, I've watched all the videos, but I was just like, this guy's the guy when you reviewed Steakland.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that wasn't too long ago either. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was, that actually got the attention of Glass Eye Picks, Larry Fassenden's company, and
really
he retweeted it. And I always get so giddy when that happens. I'm like, ooh, the creator saw,
yeah, dude, it's completely awesome. Before we get into that, we're gonna let you unpack, how you do every video and things like that. Introduce yourself to the people. So generally, my first question, whenever people have been on the show and they've never been on previously, I always ask them. So the first question for you would be, who is Cecil, and what were your inspirations for starting Good Bad Flicks?
It's kind of, I guess, a 3-part answer. The first thing is I grew up on Mystery Science Theater, and I've always had an affinity for, I guess, you could say bad movies but also like B movies. And I don't know, just an affinity for movies in general, because I love, a good, really awesome mainstream movie, the X-Men movies and all that stuff are great. But there's something really magical about the smaller movies, the movies like Steakland and, Late Phases and stuff like that, there's a lot of heart and soul that gets poured into these movies, and nobody was really talking about them. And so that comes to the second part of it. I was watching James, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he talked about, mostly video games, but he also did his Movie Madness or Monster Madness, where he talked about a bunch of horror movies. And James actually, I'm in the Philly area, and he also is from the Philly area. He's now in Jersey. But it was cool because it was like, hey, there's this dude who's in my neck of the woods, and he does these really awesome shows, and he talks about these underappreciated, unknown movies. And so that takes to the third part. I had a lot of friends from all over the country, friends of mine that we met through G4. And we all would chat on, actually at the time we used to chat on Xbox Live before Skype really was a thing. And
that's how everybody talked, man.
It's well, what we used to do was we would all get together and play Midtown Madness, because Midtown Madness you could go in infinite mode, and we would just kind of turn the game on, and a lot of times we would go and do other things. So we would have that running on the Xbox, but we'd really be playing Final Fantasy 11 on the computer or something.
Oh yes.
So I had friends of mine from all over the country, and they were, they all pretty much were fans of, Angry Video Game Nerd. And I was like, I was thinking about starting a show where I talked about, underappreciated movies and stuff, because a lot of them, like, they hadn't seen, some of the stuff that I would talk about. And so I kind of started putting that together, and I was going through this website called Blip, which was YouTube's only competition ever.
It sounds familiar. Blip kind of sounds... Was it like Blip TV or something?
Yes, it was Blip TV.
Okay.
And the cool thing about them was they seemed to be a little bit more focused on shows. Like, that was where Nostalgia Critic got started, and a lot of other channels, got started on there. And I was going through them, and eventually, like, I kind of was seeing that, okay, it was nice because Blip, you didn't deal with a lot of the copyright nonsense that you did over on YouTube, which is why a lot of people would gravitate to Blip. But unfortunately, you weren't getting the audience over there. So after doing it over there for maybe 2 years, I started, I moved over to YouTube, and then that opened me up to a whole different audience. And then eventually, actually last year, Blip went out of business. Wow. And so now YouTube has, you've got like Vimeo and whatnot, but it's not like, you go and you look at like their stats, and there's just no competition. YouTube is just the, media
YouTube
juggernaut.
is king. Yeah, YouTube is basically king. So question for you. So were you able to, are there somewhere like lost episodes of you reviewing things that we didn't get to see because they're all on Blip, or were you able to just kind of like port some of those over when you created your YouTube channel?
There are 36 lost episodes that I have them. I just didn't bring them over to YouTube for a couple of reasons. The first being is that for the beginning, like at the time when I first started, I didn't really know, how long I was going to do this. So it was like, am I going to do this just for some friends, or is this going to go anywhere? And so I wasn't really up on all of the copyright stuff, do's and don'ts.
Right.
So my first 36 episodes, I opened with a lot of like unlicensed music and stuff. And when I moved to YouTube, actually when I decided, okay, I'm going to go to YouTube, I looked into it a lot more and took things a lot more serious, and was like, okay, I can't do this. So I bought some like stock audio, and I did, just a freestanding intro. I would do an intro for the shows, and then the first 36 episodes, I was like, okay, I'll redo them at some point. And then when Blip went out of business, those shows were taken offline. So now like nobody, except for me, can see them. So what I was doing, I was like, a lot of them were episodes that people have requested, the Stuff, Split Second, Society, oh my God. And I'm like, wow. Well, I kind of did these movies already, but I did them really bad. And people are like, well, why don't you just cut the intro and put the episode up? And I'm like, well, the other thing too was back then, I wasn't as skilled as I was. I didn't have the equipment that I do now. And when I listen to the old episodes, they make me just wince.
Dude, as a podcaster, let me tell you something, man. When I listen sometimes, like I listen to some of my old episodes, like I was literally just doing that earlier today, like, and I was like, oh my gosh. It's just like, oh my, I was like, oh, so I definitely get it, but I think your videos are so good. I think it would be kind of cool just because like you have that progression of where like you can kind of like, people are like, man, like this kind of was kind of shaky there, but like look how much you improved to the point where, wait, so the song that you have now, like the kind of like rock Good Bad Flicks, did someone make that for you, or how'd you get that?
Well, actually, that's going like way forward. Originally, I would say, after the first 36 episodes, starting with episode 37 with Time Rider, I had intro music from some audio house, but I had that for a while, and then I had a buddy of mine who he was a like professional animator, and he was out of work at the time, and he was looking for stuff to do, and he had offered me, he's like, hey man, he was also, he was a local friend, but he was also a fan, and he was like, dude, let me he did like an animated intro for me once. Okay. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he's like, hey man, I can do that for you like every week if you want. And I was like, yeah, he's like, it'll give me something to do while I'm looking for a new job. And so we kind of did that, and it took him, I mean, it was it was pretty rough for a while. It took him like a year and a half to get a job. So he was doing the intros for me for like a year and a half.
Wow.
And so I have a bunch of episodes where, there's these little, each individual animated intro that were really cool. But the problem was they were taking up too much of his time. It got to a point where he did get a job and he couldn't keep doing them. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to have to either come up with a new intro or just get rid of intros altogether. And I had become friends with this band called Psycho Stick. They're really, really great bunch of guys. And they love...
That's an awesome name, by the way. Shout out to Psycho Stick, guys. Oh, yeah. That's really cool. I gotta Google you guys later.
Yeah, Psycho dude, seriously, look them up. They're great. They do songs about like Bruce Campbell. They do songs about Mega Man. They do songs
so are they like a new age kind of like... Because one of my favorite bands is The Misfits, but The Misfits just generally focused on horror. So are they like that, where they do like video game and like horror stuff? Kind
of, yeah.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, they have a YouTube channel, and they do videos for most of their songs, and they're great, man. They're a great bunch of guys. So we became friends, and I had asked him, I'm like, look, dudes, I'll do, because there was 4 of them in the band and then the manager, and I was like, I'll do a video for each, request 5 movies. And in exchange for doing an intro song for me. And so they were like, hell yeah. So I did, awesome. They requested 5 songs or 5 movies. I did that. And then they did the intro song for me. And then I had my buddy, Eric, who he did the quick little animation where, the good bad flicks, and it kind of like
smashes together. Yeah.
So
what were the movies? So you got to tell us the movies if you can remember.
If I can remember. Well, it was, let's see, Rare Exports, Mosquito. Let's see. I still owe them one. Because what happened was they wanted Ator 4, but I screwed up and I did Ator 2. So I was like, because after I did it, like I was halfway through the episode and I realized I was doing the wrong one, and I'm like, no. So I do still owe them one. I feel bad. God, what were the other ones? Oh, they the manager, Murph, who he's awesome. He wanted me to do a Barn of the Blood Llama, but he was going to send me a copy of it because you can only get it from the guy who made it. And
I've never heard that movie. I've never heard of that movie ever in my life.
Believe it or not, that's one that I never heard of either. That's why I was like, I'm going to have to ask you to send me that.
Yeah, right?
So he's like, I'm going to have to, he's like, I'll order it from the guy and I'll have it, I'll mail it to you. And I think he ordered it, and I don't know if he never got it or what happened, but I got to reach out to him again and be like, hey, dude, did you get Barn of the Blood Llama yet? And he said, because the dude he contacted was really weird. And God, what was the other? And I don't remember what else. But anyway, so they did that.
Dude, actually, you did such an awesome job on Rare Exports. Like now with Rare Exports, like, and this is how it's crazy. Like, and this is why like I'm so excited. Like, and I was so happy that you agreed to do it, because it's like I watched all the videos and I'm like, yes, I can ask him all these questions. He's probably gonna be like a little bit annoyed with me. He's like, is this your interview, or are you gonna like fanboy out on me or something? But like, you did such an awesome job on Rare Exports. I actually downloaded that movie to watch it just because of your review of it and just because of your recommendation. Like that's how of an excellent job you did, because especially like of all the background stuff that you did. And I want to get to that. I'm going to try to ask these questions, and I'm going to try not to skip around, but I'm just going to say that like you do such a great job, like that a lot of these obscure movies that I've never seen, I literally go out and I search for them just to watch them, especially on videos when you're like, hey, I definitely recommend you guys to go watch this. Even on some horror movies that you've reviewed, and I've been like, I don't know, man, I don't know. Like, and generally when you're like, I know, guys, I know how it looks, but it's worth the time. Just take like an hour and a half and watch it. It's pretty decent. And I generally like trust your opinion. So do you often get that same kind of feedback? Like people like me who are like, dude, you know what? I would have never watched it, but because you did this video on it and it was so good, I went ahead and I watched it.
I get that more and more lately because I think people are like, especially like the ones like where you say where I kind of start off with, hey, you know, before you watch this video, I really think you should go watch the movie, because a lot of times there are certain movies where I can't really talk about them in depth without unfortunately spoiling some elements of it. So there are some where the movie is still like, you know, good but even if you have it spoiled for you. But then there are other ones where, I mean, the movie just, you can't spoil it. Like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I'm like, you really need to see this and just, get blown away by it instead of, listening to me and then you go in and you're not surprised. The movie will still be effective. It'll still be really good, but you'll just have, it won't have that like, wow moment, So I always try to, there are certain movies where I really just have to preface it where I'm like, look, you really need to go check this out before watching this.
And I really appreciate that. And I think that's what kind of like brought me to your channel. Like, even though it was like, random and like I saw all those videos, I really do appreciate the fact that you're like me. Like, I kind of could relate to you in that sense because I do that often with video games, especially when I'm talking about games on the podcast. I'm always like, this is my opinion, but trust me, like, this is why I think you should play it. But I always caveat it by saying, like, listen, this is my opinion and it's a recommendation based on this. And I love that you do that with videos. You're never like, this is garbage and don't even waste your time. And then like you give like a list of things, the good, the bad. And if you recommend it, you're generally like, It looks terrible, and I love that you say that. You're like honest, because I think like that's the best part for me, because you're like, listen, I know how this looks, but trust me, it's okay. It's like it gets a little better. It's like the visual effects aren't always there in moments, but it's a great film, and I love that. Now, you seem to be a massive fan of horror and just like movies in general. So what I want to ask you next is like, what were your first horror flicks, and what were the first horror flicks you saw, and how did they later inspire you?
I don't remember exactly. I remember the ones that really stood out to me. I think the first horror movie that I saw that really affected me, I guess you could say, was A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And it affected me in the fact that I was a gigantic baby and I was scared and I didn't like it. And it was kind of funny because now I'm like so into horror. But that was a movie that I saw and it just gave me nightmares and I didn't like it. And oh God, the guy is gonna give me my dreams,
Right.
And but then the thing was, I kind of. Once I got past that initial shock factor, I started thinking about it more and I really liked it because I was like, that was really cool. And then I started looking into other horror movies, and I had grown up watching like Creature Double Feature and stuff. So it was like a lot of like kind of corny horror movies, the old like 50s horror movies that, I mean, some of them are like really scary, but then there's other ones where it's like, all right, that's a rubber spider on a wire, like.
For sure, man.
But yeah, I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was the one that really kind of set me off and terrified me, but then kind of, I guess, broke that, like, all right, maybe there's something about this, and then I started looking into more and started watching more horror films and kind of went from there.
Well, so now I guess the second thing I wanted to ask, and it's kind of like related to that previous question, is like, you cover a range of movie genres in general, and you even do video games. That's something very important to say. You even do like good bad video games and stuff like that, which is pretty awesome as well. But like, I would want to ask you, and I guess I'm sure fans out there are going to want to know, my listeners and new listeners are going to want to know, so what's your favorite movie genre and what's your favorite gaming genre?
Well, this probably won't come as a huge surprise. My favorite movie genre is horror.
You're right.
And my favorite video game genre is survival horror.
Oh.
So yeah, not too much variety there. I mean, I like all kinds of stuff, but I mean, it's just, I have my niche that I do really like, and it just so happens that it covers, horror in movies and survival horror specifically in video games.
Dude, I'm right there with you, because that's my like horror movies, particularly zombies. If you want to get into like subgenre, that's like my all-time favorite, and like that's what I love. And like right now I'm into fighting games, so I play, like, all my friends are like pro Street Fighter players and FGC guys, so that's what I'm into right now. But so tell me, since horror is your favorite genre, I really have to know this. Not even for anyone else who's listening, but just for personal reasons. What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, geez. I don't.
It's a hard one. I know. I
don't know. I don't know if I really have. Well, I guess I'll throw a caveat in there. I am currently one of the. I recently had a huge influx on my YouTube channel, and I'm gonna hit 100,000 subs soon.
Right.
And
nice. Great.
So believe me, I'm beside myself. But the reason I'm saying that is because I had been saying ever since I hit like 50,000, I had people asking me, what are your favorite movies and whatnot. And I said, I was planning on, whenever I hit 100,000, I was going to do a series of 10 videos of my top 100 favorite movies of all time. So,
that's awesome.
So each video would cover 10 different movies all the way to, number one. So I kind of started writing ones down, but then but I was at like 75,000. I'm like, oh, I got time. And then over the course of 3 days, I jumped from 75 to 93,000. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta start writing faster,
dude. That's crazy. That's awesome though, man. Like, in 3 days, you jumped from 75,000 to 93,000.
Yeah. It was huge.
Wow.
I was ecstatic because apparently my if you ever saw my video, the WTF happened to PG-13.
Yes.
YouTube featured it on like their front page that I don't know because I had all these people that are like, this was on the YouTube front page, and I'm like, YouTube has what do you talk? So I went looking I couldn't even find it,
Right.
But apparently a whole bunch of people did, and they loved that video, and then they watched all the other ones, and then they kind of went from there. And so yeah, that blew up. And so I don't know. I mean, I could tell you some of my favorite ones, but I don't know specifically like what my favorite is.
I actually want to...
Or you want to watch the list? Okay.
I want to watch the list. Like,
okay.
I want to enjoy it and just be like, oh, this is awesome. Like, hey, yeah, I want to enjoy the list. I know some people are like, no, get up to tell me right now. But no, I won't. I wouldn't. I'm not going to do it. Now, staying on the topic of YouTube just for a little bit, you mentioned earlier about not necessarily having the same issues with... with restrictions in terms of licensing and different things like that. And I saw one of your videos maybe about a month ago. I can't remember quite when you talked about that. I forgot what movie it was. Was it Ninja Turtles? It was some movie that you did a review for, and then they gave you a copyright strike. Well,
they didn't give me a copyright strike, thankfully. But it was the dumbest thing ever. I did when I do. When I do videos on movies that are out on home video and whatnot, I'll take clips from the movies as well as like still frames and other stuff and kind of put it together, and I talk over the whole thing. But whenever there is a movie that's currently in theaters or on video on demand, it's not available to purchase yet. When I do my reviews of that, I'll take the trailer and I'll take a bunch of still frames from that and use that, and I'll kind of talk about the movie and use those. Well, I did a video back in December for a movie called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Yes.
And it was actually pretty funny. I was surprised. It was in theaters seriously for a weekend. They opened it and then they immediately pulled it. I don't know what they were doing, because had they put that out around Halloween, it probably would have done really well, because it was funny.
Right.
And it was entertaining. And so I gave it a positive review. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm like, this was actually a really funny movie. It had a good cast. It had some good gore. It had a very funny ending and likable characters. And so like 6 months go by, and I get a thing that, it's because Paramount owned it, and they, put a copyright thing on it. And so I was like,
man.
Are you, what? I'm like, I don't, like, it's a bunch of still frames from your trailer.
That's so crazy.
So I'm part of a MCN, a multi-channel network. And so I contacted my guy at the MCN, and I was like, hey, this is really stupid. I was like, they gave me a copyright claim on something that is not even using any footage.
Right.
And they basically said, look, you can fight this if you want, but it's Paramount and they're really stubborn. And so they're like, so try to counter it and see what happens. So I countered it, and they came back and they were like, no, we watched this and we own the copyright on this. And they're like, all right, you could fight this if you want to. And they're like, but they could strike you for it and, make things a lot more difficult for you. And at the time, I was going through like a lot of just personal drama, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it. So I put together a video where I talked about it, about how ridiculous it was, that I was like, look, I explained a lot of stuff that people don't understand about the way that YouTube does things. I'm like, what happened was they were the ones that claimed, that they own the copyright on this. And I countered them and was like, no, this is, I was using your clips from your trailer to talk about the movie. And whenever you do that, whenever you counter it, it doesn't go to like a third party. A lot of people think that it goes to like YouTube and they like kind of oversee it. No, it goes back to Paramount or whoever did the claim.
So it's like a direct kind of like face-off kind of thing, but virtually.
Right. But the thing is, because it doesn't go to a third-party arbiter, it goes back to Paramount, and they're the ones that decide whether or not, it's right or wrong. So basically... Wait a
second. That's silly, though.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So the way that I said it, it was like Paramount looked at what had happened, and Paramount decided that they had done nothing wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I actually remember you saying that.
And that was the thing. Like they were like, well, no, we own the rights on this. And I was like, no, this was taken from your trailer. This was your free public thing. I'm like, and besides all that, I'm giving you a positive review. You know?
Exactly.
Like, but they didn't care. It doesn't matter to them. It's just they've got lawyers, and they saw this, and I do. I mean, through my MCN, but they were like, look, is this the hill you want to die on, so to speak? Is this the battle you want to get? And I'm just like, over a stupid video that's got like 9,000 views. I'm just like, whatever. So I just kind of, so I kind of did the video. And it's funny because the video where I talked about the video actually did better than the video.
Yeah.
I think the video where I talked about it got like 40,000 views or something, and the video review got like 10,000 or whatever.
Oh man.
And there were a bunch of people that are
crazy.
they're like, stupid Paramount. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. So that's why when I did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle review, all I did was I didn't even put any clips from the trailer because it was also Paramount. So I just put one still of the poster. Yeah. And I'm like, look, claim this, you jerks.
You know what's so funny? Paramount Studios is like right up the street from me because I live in Hollywood. And literally, I'm not even kidding. Like they're like five, maybe 10 minutes away from my house, if that. My wife actually, she's a teacher and she works like right across the street from the studio, and they're always like doing like this really cool stuff. So they'll like have people, they have like schools in the area and they have like a movie night, and you can come on the lot and you can like walk around, and you can do really cool stuff, and they show you like old films.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in the Paramount movie theater. So I ended up seeing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles like last year or something like that.
Sweet.
Yeah, dude, and like it was really cool. So it's like kind of strange to like go on to this, kind of go there. Everyone's like really nice, and they're talking about how I think they had like the director of like their films or whatever, and she was talking about how they have like all these films in the vault, and they're trying to like they're actually working on kind of like reissuing a lot of these old films, and she's like talking about like film degradation and all kind of like I love movies, but like this is stuff that if you were there, you'd probably have like a ball. You'd have probably been asking her like 1,000,001 questions. But like it was really interesting. So it was like really funny to hear like they're such like assholes and sticklers. But then for everyone to be like, hey, come to Paramount, enjoy free movie night and hang out. And it's like really it's many levels, man. That's so bizarre. And I'm really wondering like because I've seen your videos and they're pretty much consistent in terms of what you do and how you do them. And they all appear to kind of follow the YouTube laws in terms of creating that kind of content. And even if you have them talking, it'll only literally be like a second or two. Mm-hmm. Like if you're making a joke. So it's like kind of weird to me that they would like then, hey, this movie's ours, when you're just like, hey, I'm just showing stuff from the trailer. Like, why are you getting so aggressive, man? But now, second thing I have for you is just like, we talked about how many videos you have, and they tend to be around maybe 10 minutes or so, give or take, somewhere longer. Like, can you talk to us about the amount of research it takes to do each one of these videos?
It depends really. Some of them take a really long time. Some of them take a couple of weeks. Some of them take a lot longer. Basically the way that I do this is what a lot of people don't realize. The two main shows that I do Good Bad Flicks, and I do the Exploring movies, the Exploring series. And what is the Good Bad Flicks are where I'll take a movie, usually a B movie, and I'll kind of do a sort of Mystery Science Theater-ish riff over it. And then after I'm done, going through that, then I'll, through chunks of the movie, and then through the end, I'll talk about the production and what I liked and what I didn't like and whatnot. Those I can usually go through in about a week because I just kind of put some, a little bit of time into the backstory of it, but not a whole lot. And, most of the time is spent writing, the comedy portion of it.
Right.
For the Exploring series, they require a lot more research. Like they're the ones where, I'll look into the film's history. I'll read interviews. I'll listen to directors' commentaries. I'll see if I can dig anything up about it. I'll see if, for example, the movie like Mosquito, a friend of mine worked on the movie. So I'll ask, I ask him for, some background information and pictures and stuff.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, if I know anybody that worked on a movie, I'll try to get some information out of them. And so that, takes time. So they take a lot longer. So a lot of times what I do is I kind of use them as like a buffer. Like I know the Exploring series is more popular, but to get an episode out every week, I can't sometimes, I couldn't do an Exploring episode every week. It's too much work. Right.
I can imagine because like your videos are like, it's so much information. And I always generally wonder, I'm like, how the hell does he know all this stuff?
It's a combination of research and just, I get the way my brain works. I just absorb film knowledge and stuff. And, I can't remember where I left my keys, but, I can tell you, who starred in what, 20 years ago and, and what was the first movie Charlize Theron was in and that kind of nonsense. So
like who got all the movie props and where they went to and how much they sold for.
Exactly. So yeah, I have all that stuff, but yeah, the regular life is just a mystery to me. So, but, yeah. So yeah, it takes. Oh, and then, but then to go to the other series, the Good Bad Games and the WTFs and those. Good Bad Games take a lot longer because the thing is, what I try to tell people, like a long movie, a really long movie is 3 hours. A really short video game is 8 hours.
8 hours, yep.
So, so when I have a movie, even if it's a long movie, I only have 3 hours of footage to go through. But if I have a video game, I have to go through at the very minimum 8 hours. And that makes things take
Trust
longer.
me, I know, man. I know. So now, when you're doing these movies, right? Like, like, what's your method? Are you like watching every film like about maybe a couple days before you decide to do it, and then you're actually sitting there with a pad and you're writing it down, and then you go and you structure kind of like a script, or like what's your process and all that? Because it seems like very strenuous. Like, you have to like watch the movie, then go do research. You got to watch the movie, take notes, do research, and then take the notes that you got from the movie and structure a script around that. Is that kind of like how it works?
In a way, I have a dry erase board here in my room.
Okay.
And I have what I do is I'll write down like the movies that I want to do, and then what I'll do is, like, I'm talking like a month or two ahead of time.
Right.
And so I'll start looking through, okay, I want to do this, and then I'll start to kind of work on them. And because I'm usually working on like multiple ones at a time, and I'll start working on them, and then I'll decide, okay, well, this one doesn't have as much information, so I can get this one out sooner, or this one is going to be really complicated, like the Crow City of Angels one. There was so much back history on that. That took me probably from when I started to when I finished was probably close to a little over a month working on that. Like getting all the history and getting all that stuff right, and finding the original script, the original shooting script that they had, that they decided to they shot the whole movie, and then the studio came in and butchered the whole movie. That whole thing. So that took a long time, and then I kind of recreated what the original ending was supposed to be, using like still frames and using the original script and kind of talking about it. So yeah, that one took a while.
Jeez, dude. Like, okay, so now you recently did Blade, which is one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. I was literally just watching like Blade 2 just the other day.
Sweet.
And Blade Trinity came up, and I just like grimaced at my screen and just turned away from it. But since that was, one of the more recent episodes, and one I enjoy all the videos, but like I really enjoyed that one. Can you talk about that a little bit for me? Talk about like doing the research in Blade and just that whole thing and what you learned from it, basically.
Blade was a movie that I kind of knew. I knew a decent amount of it before going in, so that kind of helped. And my whole thing with Blade was that what I wanted to point out was I love Blade 2. I think it's great. And Wesley Snipes, man, he's just the best.
Yeah,
he's so badass. And I feel really bad because, man, did he get screwed, but that's a whole other story. He's just awesome. Like, I love, like, even some of his bad, like, I watched a movie called Gallow Walkers, and it was terrible, but he's so good. I'm like, oh, Wesley, I'm like, I love you so much, dude, but you deserve so much better than this.
You should totally do an Exploring Gallow Walkers, because that movie was in like hell forever, because I think that's one of the last films he did before he went to prison for like the whole tax situation. And then they kind of like hung it up, because I used to like do research on it when I found out, and I was like, Wesley Snipes is doing, like, I was like, this is kind of like a zombie movie. I was like, this sounds kind of cool. And then I would always try to check up on it, and then all of a sudden kind of like fell away as he went to prison. And I guess like sometime like maybe like a couple months, previous before he got out or whatever, it came out to absolutely no fanfare, and I was just kind of like, ugh. When I watched it, I was just like, ugh, man. this is really bad. It was a rough watch.
Yeah, it was tough. I saw it on Netflix, and it was. I mean, believe me, I've seen worse. Like that's why I always crack up when people are like, when there'll be a new movie that comes out, and it's a movie that might not be particularly great, but it's a movie that's not really all that bad, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's the worst movie I've ever seen." I'm like, "Okay, you've either seen like 2 movies." Or you're like 10 years old and you have no frame of reference yet. Because when you've seen thousands of movies, like, I mean, I'm not trying to be egotistical, but it's just like when you've seen as much stuff as I have and seen as many levels of good and bad, you have a new respect for, like, you'll watch a movie, you're like, you know what, that was okay. Or that, you know, it didn't do everything right, but then you watch some terrible movies and you're like, oh God, at least this wasn't like that, you know, at least it was short or whatever.
You did too? Was it Dragon Slayer?
No, I haven't done Dragon Slayer. I'm trying to think of what you might be thinking of that was...
Oh my gosh, it was like the old
Dungeons and Dragons?
Like... No, it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. It was like another one where it was like, as a matter of fact, like I'm trying to look it up right now as I'm talking to you because like I really want to talk about this because there was like, I think there was like a sequel to it and the sequel was so bad that when you did it, you just basically, you were cracking so many jokes on the entire film, the entire way. And it was like filmed overseas. It was like, oh my gosh.
Do you remember who was in it?
Was it Darkstalkers? Oh my gosh. When it was kind of like a fake Conan or fake He-Man kind of thing.
Deathstalker?
Deathstalker.
Yeah, because there's 4 Deathstalkers, and the first one, they were all Roger Corman movies,
right?
And it's hilarious because the first one was absolutely a Conan knockoff, and then the second one, the second one's the best though. The second one, I mean, it's hilarious, but it's intentionally like hilarious. Like they made Deathstalker into like more of like a rogue. Like whereas in the first one he's this just big burly dude that just hacks everybody. In this one he's a little bit more of like the wisecracking thief. And then the third one, he was more kind of a mixture of the two. He had like a little bit of like wizardry in there. And then the fourth one, they had no money for the budget, so I would say probably about 80% of the film is a combination of stock footage and footage from the previous movies that they kind of threw together and tried to make like a new movie out of it. And so the fourth one, because I had people like, oh my God, you have to do the rest of the Deathstalkers. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do 3, but I'm like, I can't 4. There's no movie there to do. It's I've done them already, you know, if I did the previous movies.
Yeah, I can imagine you like setting up your quips and you're basically like, oh yeah, the reason why this all looks familiar is because I've done this before, and you just kind of going along, it's like just tearing it up. It's so hilarious, man. Now, okay, so now you often like you've done a couple of videos talking about how Hollywood is kind of falling short in horror, the genre within itself is kind of falling short. And people aren't necessarily being as creative as they used to be. And especially in the recent couple of years, we've kind of like plagued with everything is kind of being remade right now, which is kind of driving everybody insane. And I think the best remake we've seen so far is probably Dawn of the Dead remake, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, that's I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely one of the best.
One of the best. Now, share your thoughts on that whole idea of like, of you know, Hollywood just kind of getting lazy, and particularly being lazy when it comes to the horror genre.
Well, the problem with Hollywood is that they're I don't want to say so much that they're lazy, but they are afraid to kind of take chances. And the problem is that what they'll do is they'll take a pre-existing franchise. Okay, let's say you know, Dawn of the Dead. You know, and they'll be like, okay, well, we want to remake this. This is a very popular movie, and you know, they'll throw X amount of dollars at it. And in the case of Dawn of the Dead, they got lucky because they got a really talented director, and he had a really great crew, and they did what I always say, if you're going to do a remake of a movie, don't do the same exact movie. You know, take elements from the movie and go in a different direction, do something different. So with Dawn of the Dead, really the only things they had in common was it was zombies and a mall. But if you were to watch the two movies side by side, back to back, you would feel like you had two completely different experiences because the movies were different. They had different characters, they had different things that they went through, and really it was just, so it was a similar setting, different movie. But the problem with a lot of remakes is that they take the same movie and they just do the same exact thing. And it's like
over and over again. Yeah.
Why would you do that? Especially when you're taking like a classic movie, a movie that people have seen, zillions of times. Well, why are you going to just do the same exact thing? It's like people are just going to want to go back and watch the original. They're not, or they're just going to do nothing but compare it to the,
right.
This is what worked and this is what didn't. In the case of something like Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters was, I know, right? It's the sacred cow that you can't talk about. The Ghostbusters, looking beyond all the nonsensical, controversy.
Yeah.
They, if you look at the effects from the original and then you look at the effects of the new one just looks terrible. And that was a large part. It was like people were like, okay, how come can you take a movie that was made 30 years ago and we've had so many advances in special effects and, the new effects, they look terrible. And that was the other thing, too, is that they'll do something like Clash of the Titans where it'll be all CGI and it'll look awful. And so that's the thing. What kills me about Hollywood is that they'll take a pre-existing franchise, something, because they're afraid, they want that name recognition, but then they don't particularly understand what made the original popular to begin with, and then they'll throw $200 million at it and give it to like a music video director, and then you get a $200 or $200 million music video.
Wait, are you taking shots at Rob Zombie right now?
No, actually not Rob Zombie. More so Michael Bay and all his buddies.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Now Bay, I will give credit where credit's due. The man has a fantastic eye. The visuals in his movies are always just impeccable.
Beautiful.
And up until Transformers. I really enjoy, I love The Rock. I love Bad Boys. I love, The Island. But I think what happened with the Transformers was such a hit, that his stuff, he kind of stalled. But then if you go and you watch something like, what's the movie he did with Mark Wahlberg and The Rock? The weightlifter.
No Pain, No Gain.
Yeah, No Pain, No Gain. Then you go and you're like, oh, okay, look, he's still got it. Do this. Like, why are you doing that? But then I understand why he's doing the Transformers movies because they make billions of dollars. So he's kind of the exception. Like, he's got a really good eye, and I do think he's a good director when he's in the right thing. But what happened when he started Platinum Dunes, he was hiring all of his music director buddies to make movies. And they were making, these really flashy, empty horror films.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I'm taking the jokes at that. I actually think that Rob Zombie is a really good director. It's just that he needs to stick to his original ideas. I think that the best stuff that he does is when he's doing his own work, like House of Thousand Corpses and the Devil's Rejects. I think that's really where he is at.
The Lords of Salem was that?
Lords of Salem looked fantastic and conceptually it was good. I didn't particularly care for it though. That's one where it just didn't work.
That's one I really didn't care for a little bit either, but generally I do enjoy his work as well too.
Now the thing with Halloween, I talked about it in my remakes video, where essentially Rob Zombie was he still is a huge fan of Halloween, and the studio came to him and they were like, look, we're gonna remake Halloween, with or without you. Do you want to do this? And his whole thought process was like, well, look, I'm a huge fan of the property. And this is going to, if I don't do this, somebody else is going to. So let me at least try to put my spin on it. So he did it. And a lot of people didn't particularly care for it. And they were angry at him about it. And it was like, you don't seem to understand. This was going to happen, with or without him. So,
and I totally get that reasoning. People are being a little bit, unreasonable, but I that reasoning makes sense. Like, let me do it. I'm a fan. I actually love it. So give me a shot at it.
Yeah, let him try to do it. And it didn't work out as well. But God, I mean, look at all the stuff that they've been talking about with their, because then he did the second one and he really didn't want to do the second one. But
yeah,
they like the first one he kind of wanted to do, but I think they threw a large pile of money at him and were
it was the
second
money.
One. So that one I'm a little iffy on, but still, he at least tried to do something unique. But now they're talking about doing the third one, and they're, we're going to give it to, this director and this director. And I can almost guarantee that when they finally do ever put out the third one, it's probably going to be really terrible and make people be like, oh, the first two weren't all that bad.
I can't wait to see your video on it if they do a third one. Now, a couple of things in what you said just now. You're talking about Hollywood, and I just wanted to, it's like, do you think Hollywood's aversion to risk is also due to us as like the viewing public? When I say us, I mean the viewing public, because I feel sometimes Hollywood, they want to do things creative, but then people don't support it because they're like, what the hell is this? And they don't understand it. Like, do you feel like there's some of that in there as well too? Just to be fair,
Yeah, I mean, there is a large portion of that. Like, you can't deny though, like, a movie will come out and everybody will be like, oh, who wants to go see that pile of crap? And then it's number one at the box office. And it's like, well, apparently you all did.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Hollywood, they are a business, and they're going to make, it's a combination of what they think we want and what they know we want. So if Paul Blart Mall Cop opens at number one and ends up, making $200 million, well, guess what? There's going to be a Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
Yes, there is. Sequels on the rise.
So that's the thing. So if a movie comes along and it's a hit, well, you can expect there to be another one. And Hollywood is going to look at that and be like, okay, well, Paul Blart Mall Cop was a hit. Let's use that for the thing. And so now they're going to look at, another rival studio is going to be like, well, people want that. Let's do, our own version of that. And then, we get the alternate versions that come after that. And so more so with stuff like disaster movies and superhero movies and whatnot. That's why we have like such an influx right now, because Hollywood works on trends. What's really popular now? Superheroes. So we're getting a lot of superhero movies. Years ago it was disaster movies. Before that it was action
90s,
movies and
Dante's Inferno, some kind of meteor crashing someplace. It was tons and tons of those. Now, we mentioned something else earlier. And I actually did an episode and I spoke about this. And I did it because I had to call bullshit on a lot of the things that people were saying in terms of the negative backlash that the Ghostbusters film got. Now, I'm a Ghostbusters fan, like massive fan, and I haven't seen the movie. It didn't particularly interest me, and it didn't particularly interest me because of the sort of confusion and dishonesty I saw coming from the studio in terms of the information that they gave us and then what the movie kind of ended up being. What's your thoughts on it? Have you seen it? And like, what did you think about it? And how did you feel about, the whole controversy? Quote unquote controversy.
Yeah. The kind of controversy was more manufactured than anything. Really, there wasn't this uprising of people that were hating it because it was women. Like, that was really a whole big thing. And and it's so irritating that turned into a thing. For me, what happened was, first and foremost, I love Ghostbusters. I did a video on Ghostbusters 2 because I think that it's really an underappreciated sequel. But I love the first one. The first one's probably one of my all-time favorite movies. And when they were talking about doing the remake, I was like, no, not Ghostbusters, and then I was like, all right, fine, they're going to do it. Let's, see. And when they announced that it was going to be Paul Feig, I got really annoyed because I can't stand the guy. Every single movie he's made, Bridesmaids, Spy, and then everybody raves about Freaks and Geeks, and they're shocked when I'm like, I don't like Freaks and Geeks either. I'm like, I don't like anything that the guy's made. And
why not? Is it just his aesthetic or?
I don't like his style. It's very his shots are very flat. The comedy is just you see it coming a mile away. There's no panache to it. It's all just very rudimentary, and I don't like his style. Just everything that I've seen him do, fair. I really don't care for. And I don't really I like, you get some people that'll be like, oh, you're just saying that because you don't like you're a misogynist or whatever, and it's like, no, honestly, dude, I don't like I'm fine with Melissa McCarthy. I used to watch Gilmore Girls, and she was like a main character in it, so
yeah. Dude, I can't wait for you to cause oh my gosh, go ahead, cause I have a rant that I kind of did it on when I talked about it on a previous show, and now that I'm talking to an actual Ghostbusters fan right now, I'm gonna say certain things and you can verify, and I'm gonna kind of ask you. I'm gonna say it in the form of a question, and you can verify with me. But go ahead, and just to kind of lay waste to that whole idea.
Yeah, so I really didn't have a problem. I thought that doing you want to talk about lazy Hollywood stuff, doing a gender swap, I think, is very lazy. I think that it's all right, well, why? If you're just going to do relatively the same movie, it's just all women now. Women deserve better. Make their own characters, make their own movies, make something that they're going to stand out on. And when they started going through the whole movies need female heroes, and I'm like, well, what about Ellen Ripley? What about, wasn't Charlie's Angels 1 and 2 huge? There has been a lot of really big female fronted movies over the years, and there were people that were acting like Ghostbusters, the remake, was going to be the first one ever, and it seemed like that was the platform that they were going with. And so I was willing to give it a shot because at the time I had started, I was doing more theatrical released movies. Once I found out that my audience wanted to see that, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll start doing more current movie reviews. And I was going to go see it. I wasn't particularly looking forward to it, but I was willing to give it a shot.
Part of the job.
Right. Now, but then shortly thereafter, what happened, James, the Angry Video Game Nerd, he put out his video because he is well known as Ghostbusters being one of, if not his favorite movie of all time. So all of his fans were on him. Oh my God, you have to see this movie and trash it. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to see you trash this movie. And so he put out a video basically saying, hey, addressing all of his fans, hey, I looked at the trailer, and instead of supporting this movie, I'm just going to be like, no, you know what? It looks terrible, and I'm going to let my wallet speak, and I'm not going to go see it. I'm not going to review it.
Agreed.
And the backlash that he got from that was ridiculous. He had all kinds of, he had, Patton Oswalt and Dane Cook, calling him a scumbag, and people were making fun of his appearance and making fun of the fact that they're like, oh my God, I'm looking at his wedding ring. Somebody married this loser. And for me,
really?
Oh God, yeah, he got so much of a backlash over it. It was ridiculous. And the hilarity of it, yeah, Dane Cook was being like, have you heard about this scumbag? What he said about he's afraid of women. What a misogynist pig. And then the previous tweet from him was a picture of him sitting on a chair, and he's next to a girl who's in a bra and panties, and he's playing a video and playing a video game and completely ignoring her. And it's just like, oh, wow, the irony boat is just floating past here. And then
that's hilarious.
People attacked him. Well, didn't attack him, but people went after Dane Cook about it. And then he admitted that he never actually watched the video. And it was like, oh, great, you're trashing a dude, and you didn't even you weren't even nice enough to watch what you're complaining about. So my whole thing was, James was an inspiration to me, and if they were going to trash him this badly about it, then I was also going to refuse. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to give this movie money either. You know, if they're going to be, you know, if they're going to use these kind of tactics, like Sony was in on it too. Like Sony was basically, the president was saying that the, you know, all the comments and everything, like he was so happy that there was this backlash over the movie, and it was how it was going to work towards the favor of it. And
yeah, someone actually did a video talking about that, talking about like they got like inside information about the conversation surrounding this movie. So there was like, they knew, they were glad for it.
Yeah, but then the movie ended up bombing horribly anyway, and it was like,
yeah,
well, maybe, you know, you shouldn't attack your audience, and they might actually go see the movie. Because a lot of people saw it, and they were like, you know, it wasn't like that bad of a movie. They're like, it wasn't anything particularly great. They're like, but
people
it wasn't,
were honest.
Yeah, they weren't.
And that's the thing that they overlook.
You know, and another, there's a guy, a buddy of mine, Matt from Reckless Eating. He got to see the movie really early. And
wow.
He hated it. So the thing is, he's not a movie reviewer.
Okay.
And so he he had seen the movie, and afterwards he came out and he sat in his car and he turned his, you know, his camera on, and he went on like a half-hour rant about how terrible the movie was. And it made like the front page of Reddit, and same thing. He got attacked. And the thing was, he wasn't like, oh God, this movie was a bunch of women, you know, he was talking about like, he gave legitimate points as to what worked, what didn't work, why it was so bad. And, there were, can I curse on here?
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was people on Twitter, you know, look at this limp dick loser, you know, you know, oh yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm going to listen to a movie review by Dude in Car. And I was like, because he's recording this in his car, it somehow makes it like it null and voids it. Like, this is this dude's honest opinion about it. And and he was another one who got trashed over it. And I was like, that just reinforced that. I'm like, nope, not going to see it. And I had a lot of people asking me about it. And you know what? If I had done a video, it probably would have done really well. So, I mean, I really, I lost out on money, essentially, by not doing a video on it. But I'm at the point where I was like, you know what? I said I wasn't going to go see it because I had a lot of people asking me, and I'm going to stand firm on that. So, you know,
I definitely agree, because I mean, I did an episode discussing it, and I'm sure a lot of people were, who heard it were probably upset with me, but I called bullshit on the whole thing, and I was completely honest. I was like, listen, there are people out there who are going to be against this film just because it's women. If we want to be fair and honest, there is those people, but those people that's a very, very tiny minority. Okay. I was just like, I'm a Ghostbusters fan, and a lot of these people who are jumping on the Ghostbusters train and calling people pigs for not liking the film aren't even actual fans. And how I know they're not fans, and I said this, now this is the part where you can kind of say, well, this is true or not. Years ago, when they were talking about a remake, right, without the original cast, if you look on forums, Ghostbusters fans, we were against it. Yeah. We were completely against a remake years ago. And I'm like, you wouldn't know this unless you're an actual Ghostbusters fan, and unless you actually went on those forums and you actually had a conversation, you know, and you're not just one of these social media people who just looking for likes and, you know, wanting everybody to love you, and you want to fucking suck butt or whatever the hell it is that you want to do just because you want to seem cool. And it really made me angry, because I'm like, an all-female Ghostbusters cast doesn't tarnish my view of the film. It really doesn't, because then I go on to talk about, and I was just like, now if you're a fan and you're a fan, you know about this. At one point they did like kind of like a Batman Incorporated thing where there was this like different Ghostbusters groups and things like that. And I was just like, when they first sold this movie to us, it was supposed to be a different universe, kind of touching on a completely different kind of group, kind of like taking up the reins of the whole Ghostbusters things and what have you, right? Then when they show us the trailer, it's supposed to be in the same fucking universe. Mm-hmm. And then everybody gets confused, and we're like, what the fuck is this? When you guys told us you're going to do this, you said this was like something completely different, and it's going to kind of stand on its own. But then the first thing in the trailer, you're talking about 20 years ago. Why would you even mention fucking 20 years ago? right? It was so bad that Melissa McCarthy, who was in the film, had issues with it.
Yeah.
But if we could, you see, and they never fucking mention shit like that. But it gets me so upset. It's like, oh, you don't like it? You're like, no, like, actually don't really care. Like, I literally don't care. I have no problems with, like, I was one of those people who's like, okay, they're gonna add all females. Well, we live in this time where that's the cool hip thing to do. I don't really care about that. Is the script gonna be good? Is the movie gonna be good? And I haven't seen it yet, and I cannot give a fair and accurate judgment. However, what I can say from people that I trust who have seen it and who are actual fans, and I know, they were like, that movie is garbage. They're like, to be honest, it's not as bad as I thought it would have been, but it's still garbage. And the fact that people who are actual fans and who actually are objecting to the film based on actual facts that were presented and how this movie was supposed to be presented to us all those years ago, and we're rejecting it, most of us, because that's where most of the rejection is coming from. People are rejecting it based on that level. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is a fair equation, and somebody will probably say that it's not, but it's kind of like saying that, oh, we hate white men when they said Ben Affleck was going to be Batman. And everybody was like, oh, God. Because people were like shitting on Ben Affleck. People were like, dude, really? Like, I was the first guy that was like, really? Like, Ben Affleck is Batman? Like, come on, man. Batfleck, he's garbage. And then it wasn't a personal attack on Ben Affleck. It wasn't anybody saying like, it was just like, dude, like, you do not fit this character. Like, your acting chops is not up to par. You may not be able to, you know, and it may or may not be a fair analogy, but I feel like we were just like, everybody understood that it wasn't a personal thing for Ben Affleck. It was just like, we just feel like his acting chops and who he is as an actor cannot fill the shoes of Batman. Gladly, we were wrong. Mm-hmm. I feel I was wrong. He ended up being the best part of the movie to me. And that movie was horrible. But I just feel like there should be some fairness and people should be able to give honest critique. And I feel like if someone who saw the film is able to come back and say that, you know what, I saw it and I was right, it really wasn't great, I think that's really, I call bullshit. And I'm going to call some extra bullshit like I did in the previous episode and say that. And what I said was, and I challenged someone on social media about this when they were talking about people being pigs, misogynistic because they didn't like the film. And I was asking them, and it was a white female, and I was like, do you have anything to say about the portrayal of Leslie Jones's character? And I didn't have an answer. And I'm like, because she's a trope as well too. Mm-hmm. But you guys are not harping on that. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, so there was just many things wrong with that whole thing. And it was just kind of like, and I'm kind of right there with you guys. Like, I'm not going to support it because if I can't even have an opinion on a film that I go out to support, what the fuck is the point? And that is that.
Well, one thing I thought of while you were talking about that was something that I had remembered from a while ago. When I had a lot of people on Twitter, you know, saying, hey, you know, are you going to review the movie? And finally, when I came out and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to see it. And there were a lot of people that were like, well, why are so many people judging this movie before it came out? You know, why are they so against it? Why are they, you know, bad mouthing this movie? This has never happened before. And I was like, oh, really?
What?
I'm like, explain Pixels then. Explain
exactly
how many people were frothing at the mouth and they couldn't wait for Pixels to fail. Now, I'm not defending Pixels, but the thing was to say that never has a movie been judged and hated on its trailer.
That's a fucking lie.
That is a lie. That's such a lie.
Wait, and not only is it a lie because we live in the age of technology, and this is how I always like to catch people. That's why I mentioned the forum things, because you can go dig up those old forums and see all of us Ghostbusters fans talking about because back then they were still talking, you know, there were rumors about them, you know, the original cast coming back, and everybody was like, bring the original cast back. If you do it with a new cast, it's going to be shit and we don't want to see it. Everybody, we were Ghostbusters were like the sacred calf. Everybody was like, don't even remake it, just leave it alone. It doesn't even need a remake, you know? Mm-hmm. So the fact that they were lying to say that, oh, no movie is ever seen, like, that's bullshit. Look on YouTube. There's people who review trailers.
Yeah, they do trailer
and they talk about how
reactions.
and they talk about how shitty a fucking movie looks just based on the trailer. Like, so what are you talking about? Like, yes, no, this happens all the time.
And isn't
like,
that the point of the trailer, is to sell you on the movie? And it's like, if it's a bad, I mean, there have been bad trailers that have turned into good movies. Like the first trailer for the original 2000 X-Men was horrible.
It was
but then the
fucking horrible.
movie ended up being great. And so there have been movies where the trailer came out and the trailer was terrible, and then the movie was really good. There was another one recently, Homeland, the Jason Statham movie. I thought the trailer was terrible. It completely missold the movie. And then I watched it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, this movie's really good. Like,
yep.
So yeah, I mean,
I totally agree, because I saw that film and I felt the same exact way about the trailer too. Like, oh, this is gonna be
be awful. And I was like, and what happened in the movie like was completely different. And but with Ghostbusters, from what I gather from the people who I do know that have seen it, they said, yeah, the trailer is pretty representative of what the movie is. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's ridiculous to try and act like no one has ever hated anything based solely on a trailer is disingenuous.
Yeah, that's what and that's what got me really upset about the whole Ghostbusters thing, was that there were people who were making videos on YouTube and they were literally saying like, oh gosh, what's his name? The heavyset dude. Oh gosh.
Movie Bob?
No, like with glasses. He always like smashes his system. Like he got really famous.
Oh,
years ago
Francis.
Francis.
Yeah, Boogie.
Yeah, Boogie. So he made a video, and and like I've seen him and like other people, and they're like, listen, I have no problem with like the gender swap, whatever. Like I really don't care. Like I really focus like, is on the story and things like that. And I feel like it's so unfair that if we can't look at a trailer and then give our honest opinion, and if we're going to list reasons of why we don't like it, like you said, like your friend did the whole video when he listed the reasons of why he didn't like it after actually seeing the movie, which I'm sure a lot of people were probably like fucking, what's his face? The comedian who didn't even see the fucking video or see the movie.
Dane Cook. Yeah.
Yeah, Dane Cook, who didn't see it, but just, because that's the social shit to harp on right now. Everybody's just gonna, they're gonna jump on the suck butt train because that's cool right now. And it's just kind of like, well, I think it's actually worse than being disingenuous. It's like, it's something more vile than that I can't find the right words for right now, which is like, you can look at someone intellectually saying, I don't like this movie, and these are the reasons why I don't like this film, and then completely ignore everything that they just said and literally just look at you and be like, you're lying, you don't like it because it's women. I think it's so fucking disgusting. It's just like, really, like, so you're not even listening to me. You're just gonna, it's like, it's kind of like you doing a movie. Like, say you did when you did the review for Blade, right? And you did it, and say at the end of it, you're like, well, like it's okay, but it really wasn't a great movie. But you're like, it wasn't all that, and these are the reasons why I didn't like it. And it's like a 10-minute video, and you kind of like give all this background information, and someone says, no, Cecil, you actually just didn't like Blade because Wesley Snipes is black.
Exactly.
You'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I did like 2 months of work on this movie. Like, what? It's just like, no. Like, and because like, can imagine how upset you would be. You'd be like, wait, no. Like, did you even watch the video? I did a 10-minute video listing things of why I didn't like this movie. But you're telling me now all of that is bullshit, and I don't like the movie just because he's black? What the fuck is that? Like, no. So it's like that kind of thing with that whole thing. And I'm so glad that it played out the way that it did, because then they were also trying to say how successful it was, but then when you really look at the numbers, it wasn't.
Yeah, they tried to spin that. They're like, no, it was really a success, and they had all these people. Ghost Bros, it was a hit, and then after, it's like, look, you don't understand, we live in a day and age when you can go to like Box Office Mojo and see how bad it's doing. I mean, it opened in number 2, which is never a good sign for $160 million tentpole film. Yes. And yeah, and they were trying to, and then after they initially were saying that it was a hit, and then like a few days later, after they got called out on it, they were like, well, it was a bomb because of the patriarchy, and it was like, oh, just stop, please stop.
It bombed because it looked bad from the trailer, and then when everyone saw it, it was bad, and that's it. And like, it's bad because guess what? I mean, you're a movie guy. Tell me right now about a movie that people were kind of like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then it ended up doing pretty well because their movie ended up actually being good. I'm sure you can think maybe of probably one because it happens.
X-Men, for example, X-Men,
exactly.
The first trailer looked really bad. They eventually put out another trailer that looked a little bit better, and it ended up being a monumental hit. And there's been a few movies where the trailer would look not all that great, and then a lot of times word of mouth would kind of help a movie along, because there's some movies, unfortunately, I totally can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know there was something not too long ago, within the past couple of years, where the movie came out and it opened in like second or third place, and it didn't really do that well. And then word of mouth really took over, and it ended up becoming like number one, like, the next week. So, which is like, unheard of, so, but I mean, it does happen. And the thing is, there are some movies where it's just that they're that good where, you'll get enough of a word of mouth going and kind of that groundswell. So I'm sure if Ghostbusters, honestly, if they would have come out and it would have just done a regular marketing campaign or whatever, and they would have rolled with it, it would have done better. There would have been a lot more people that were willing to give it a chance. Because it's funny, there was somebody put a comparison up. They were like, they put a thing up about, here was the reaction to Suicide Squad. And there were like people that were like, I don't know, it doesn't look all that great. And the director was like, well, this is a movie that I made, and I think it's going to be really good, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And the movie comes out, and it's 3 weeks at number one. Meanwhile, Ghostbusters comes along. People are like, they didn't like it. And the director's like, if you don't see it, you hate women. And all these people are like, I don't like being accused of things. So no, I'm not going to go see your movie.
I'm not going to go fucking see this movie. And you know what's so funny? You know what? That's a perfect thing. Well, this is like, before we switch it up and not harp on Ghostbusters anymore.
No, it's the Ghostbusters show.
Yeah, right. When they made Will Smith Deadshot, people could have been like, oh, I'm not going to go see this. And people are like, okay, this looks kind of cool. People had issues with certain characters and, maybe certain castings and things like that. They released a trailer. People critiqued the trailer. Some people liked the trailer. Some people didn't like the trailer. They didn't say that if you don't like this trailer, you're racist because it stars Will Smith. And it stars, what's her face as Amanda Waller. I can't believe I'm forgetting her name right now.
Oh, I forget her name. She was so good.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, and I'm glad that you use that kind of like thing to kind of like, post them against each other. It's that same kind of thing. It's like, no, the film came out, and guess what? People were worried, and it stood up on its own merit, even though it's like, it's predominantly, from what I've been getting, mixed reviews, but a lot of people that I know said it was pretty good. I'm still going to go see it. I haven't seen it, by the way, yet, and I'm still going to go see it. But it's like, I feel like if I go see a film, not even if I want to go see a film and before I see it, someone's literally telling me, if you go see this movie and you don't like it, you're a piece of shit. It's just like, okay, so I'm just not even going to go see the movie then because like, well, fuck it. Like, why? Well, what's the point? What's the point of me wasting $15 in this day and age that we live in, that movie tickets are so damn expensive, to go see a movie, to then have all this nonsense thrown at me and all these labels and all these accusations thrown at me just because someone disagrees with my opinion? Like, I'm completely opposed to that bullshit, and I call bullshit on it every single time I see it. And the reason why Ghostbusters fails, as far as I'm concerned, and it's because Paul Feig was doing bullshit. He was jumping on the train and accusing people of being misogynist when they weren't. And it was just like, this shit just looks bad. That's all. Like, I think it's okay. If you want to do female Ghostbusters, that's really cool. But your trailer looks like shit. And I think the best description I heard of the CGI in it was that it looked like a Universal Studios ride.
Yeah, it did. From what I had seen in the trailer, and it looked really bad for $160 million movie. It should not look like that, because I've seen going back to stuff like I did Stakeland and and Monsters. The
yes, dude.
What's his name? Garth Edwards. Gareth Edwards. God, I'm screwing up names left and right.
No, that's all right,
but
man.
like he did all of that on his home computer. And like I was floored by how much of that was CGI. And then you're gonna say he did that for $500,000 himself. And you're gonna tell me that this tentpole $160 million movie is just like you're gonna get this? And that's the problem, because like if you're going to make a movie that is very visually effects intensive, you need someone in there with a visual effects background, somebody who is going to be able to make that stuff work. That's why there's a lot of movies where if it's done by, James Cameron or Lucas or somebody, you can say what you will about their directing and whatnot, but you can never say that the effects look bad. The effects are always top notch. And a lot of times, and in the effect of something like Cameron, his effects end up like being revolutionary
and winning awards
and stuff. And because and then with Spielberg, he brings in a lot of Phil Tippett and everybody, so they make they surround themselves with people that know what they're doing. And Feig, his background primarily is comedy, and so he was trying to do like this visual effects comedy movie, and it ended up just failing on both fronts, because I don't find his brand of humor funny, and then he failed on the effects front because he isn't really a good director, and he had some really half-baked awful effects put in. I don't know who the effects team was that worked on the film, but it just, from everything that I've seen in the trailers, they all look terrible.
But to wrap this up, really, what really is happening, Cecil? The whole fact of the matter is, we don't like Ghostbusters, or we reject this remake because we're pigs, because we're chauvinist pigs. That's really what it is.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I
believe, what, actually, God, I was thinking about, there was a part of me that was thinking about reviewing it or doing something like with my wife, and because she was the one who was really vocal about it. Like when we went to see, I think when we saw Batman Superman, they ran the trailer for Ghostbusters, and she turns to me and she goes, "What the fuck was that shit?" And I went and I looked at her and I'm like, "You misogynist."
Yeah, it's just kind of like, just cut it out. People are really silly, man. Anyway, let's get back to the fun stuff here. Now, again, you do so much stuff. Like, I had a question that I just literally thought about during our conversation, because earlier I was watching a Japanese movie called Parasite. I don't know if you've ever seen it or if you heard of it.
I saw Parasite Eve, but
yeah, it's kind of like that.
Okay.
It's in that same vein. And my question is, like, have you thought about, or are you in the future going to do something like that, where you kind of review or explore like a lot of like indie, like maybe like Japanese or Korean film and stuff like that? Because those are really big on the market right now. And generally speaking, from all the horror movies that I tend to see of late, that are anywhere near decent or pretty good, tend to be coming out of the Asian market, Korea and Japan mainly. Like, have you thought about kind of like start probably reviewing some of those films?
Yeah, because I love so many foreign films. There are some just amazing from all over, from Thailand to Japan to China. Movies like crazy stuff like Tokyo Gore Police, and then amazing movies like the original Old Boy and Shutter, and The Host. They've just cranked out so many awesome movies. Honestly, I don't know why I haven't. I guess it's just that there's so many. Like, seriously, my list of like to do films, like I'm always adding to it. Like right now, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,300 movies, And
Jeez.
and when
What?
there's only 54 weeks in a year, so I mean I'm only doing 50 roughly a year, and I mean and I'm always adding to it, so there's so many movies that I want to do that I just haven't done yet. But I plan on doing it. I actually really would like to do some more, shine some light on some more foreign films, just because there's so many really cool movies that a lot of people don't watch because they don't like reading subtitles.
Subtitles, yep.
And that's like the clincher. And I'm like, no, you're missing out. Movies like Martyrs and Inside, and
Yes.
these are just incredible, just
really good movies.
Really good movies that are you want to talk about blowing away American horror. Well, I should say American mainstream horror. A lot of the stuff that gets dumped into theaters. Just so many foreign horror movies are genuinely scary. And they're original and they're unique, and we're getting just a lot of cookie cutter Bagul scare movies.
Yeah, Bagul.
And it's a shame because it's like when I saw the original, kind of going off on a slight tangent here. When I saw the original Sinister, I thought was amazing. I love the original Sinister. And then when I went to go see Sinister 2, I got really worried because I knew that none of the original people were involved with the sequel. That's never a good sign.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, there was a row of maybe 13-year-old girls in front of me, and they were terrified. And I'm just like, oh God, this is who this movie is for. This is for the 13-year-old girls, that this is the first horror movie that maybe they were able to, get out to see. And so this is what they consider terrifying. Me, I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, he's going to jump out there. All right, the guy's going to turn around, loud noise. All right, a cat's going to jump out of here, and
that you never see in the movie again.
Yeah, exactly, So I kind of was like that. And then I walked out of the movie and I was really mad. Although on the plus side, that was where, the whole, the Bagul jump scare thing came from. And where I started kind of making fun of it because it was such a waste, because you have this amazingly scary character and they made this movie. And they took seriously one of the scariest horror icons in recent years and made him a punchline. So way to go, Blumhouse.
Yeah, right. Bagul. Whenever someone's Bagul, that's hilarious, man. Now, as we're winding down, I got just a couple more questions for you before we close out. One of them are, what are the best remakes you've seen?
Let's see. The best remakes I've seen. Well, the Dawn of the Dead remake. I love. The Scarface. A lot of people don't know that's actually a remake.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Let's see. The Blob.
Yes.
The 1988 version. I actually.
Matt Dillon.
Yeah, Matt Dillon. I have some of the Blob on my desk.
Really?
I put out that video and I got contacted by a guy who, this is one of the perks of my job. I got contacted by a guy who, he was young and did some of the effects on there. And after they did the movie, they had, milk containers, like the gallon milk containers. They had gallons and gallons of leftover Blob gook. Because when they were cleaning up everything, he took some of it and he kept it in his refrigerator for years and years and years, and he actually took a little vial and filled it up and sent me some of the Blob gook. So I have this little vial of the Blob on my desk.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome, man.
So
oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
That cool stuff like that. The Thing is another one.
Yes,
I love The Thing. That's also another one of my all-time favorite movies. Just adore The Thing,
dude. John Carpenter and Rob Bottin did such a great job on that film. Bottin's effects hold up, and I'm just kind of I'm amazed sometimes.
Well, here's
I revisit that film and it's crazy.
Here's the brilliance of those guys. And this is one of the reasons why I think that Hollywood is kind of crumbling under its own weight. But they like now you always want to have enough money, but sometimes like creativity will trump no matter what size budget you have. So, for example, the scene where the one guy's head springs the spider legs and it runs out of the room. It's one of the scariest moments in the movie. They did that, like they needed a way to get that to move it out of the room, and they didn't really have, they didn't have CGI, they didn't have anything.
RC car, man.
Right. Well, they put it. They actually put it on a skateboard, but it kept falling over. So one of them was chewing gum, and they took his chewing gum and used that as the adhesive to hold it onto the skateboard and wheeled it out of the room. Like, that's that kind of last minute engine. And then you watch it and you're terrified, but it's a foam latex head that's stuck to a skateboard with chewing gum. I mean, that's just the brilliance of that. So, we don't really get a lot of that nowadays. I mean, I understand, like CGI absolutely has its place. Going back to Stakeland again, they used CG in such an amazing way when I was researching the film, where it was all the graffiti in the movie was all CG, and like there were, the helicopters and stuff was just like a light, and they added like visual effects, and they had a fan blow stuff around. Like, I
was surprised when you told me that. Yeah, because that's that scene where they were dropping the zombies on the people, right?
Yeah,
like from the helicopter. Yeah.
It was just amazing, and it's like, oh my god, this is just brilliant. And it's like, look what they were able to do with no money. And the fact that you have other movies that they'll just have these huge budgets, and then it ends up all looking fake. It's kind of frustrating. So especially when you have like these guys that are doing these smaller films and they're just not getting like any recognition. And it's like, oh, these guys are, they're making great stuff and it's getting overlooked. And but I'm just thinking, let me think, what else? What are some other really good remakes? I'm looking over at my wall of movies. Let's see. Oh God, I don't. Surprisingly, I don't have as many remakes as I thought over here. I can't. Those are the main ones. I'm sure after I got done talking to you, I'll be like, oh, I forgot to tell them, and I'll have like 50.
Yeah, right.
50 of them will come flooding to me.
Yeah, right. No worries, man. No worries. And another one is, what are your movie recommendations for horror noobs?
Movie recommendations for horror noobs. I think you have to go watch a lot of the classics. Watch Halloween, watch Friday the 13th, watch Nightmare on Elm Street. But then also, if like it kind of also depends if you are looking, it depends on what scares you too. Like there are, right. If you're afraid of ghosts, well, you want to watch the House on Haunted Hill, the original, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if it's like, all right, well, you're afraid of monsters, well then, go watch The Thing or something like that. So yeah, it kind of also factors into what the person is afraid of. Me, I'm terrified of ghosts and bugs. So if you have a movie that, you have a movie like the original Paranormal Activity, or you have something like The Nest, and I am hiding.
Yes, because I remember. Wait, was that the one with the spiders?
No, The Nest was the giant cockroaches.
Yes. Like, because I felt like there was some video where like you were reviewing it and you were just like, nope.
Yeah. Well, I did a couple of what was the I think it was The Nest, where I'm just like, I was like, nope, the fuck out of there.
Yeah, like just burn this whole house down. Just fuck it. I don't even know why they're still in the house. I would just burn it down. And that's the end of the movie. I would just burn the entire house down.
Yeah, no, I have never been. I think there was something traumatic happened to me with bugs when I was a child, because I'll see if it's like an ant or something, I'm like, whatever. Yeah. But if there's like a spider, I'm like, ah,
Oh man, that's awesome, man. Dude, it was so great having you on the show, man. It was awesome talking to you, dude. I really, really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It was fun.
No, dude, it was man, I really, really appreciate it. And I cannot wait for, your list of most beloved movies. I think that's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Before we go, one last thing. Do you have a couple indie flicks that you felt or that you feel are overlooked right now that you can recommend really quickly?
Some independent movies that one that's staring me right in the face is a movie that I'm working on this week is a movie called Snowpiercer.
Okay.
That
yes.
came out.
That was really good.
It was really good, and there's a very good story about how the Weinsteins they screwed over another production.
Oh gosh.
And they basically were fighting the director over cutting, the movie's runtime down, and so that'll be out on Monday. And
awesome.
I've been working on that for a little while, and that's really good. What are some other? I mentioned Late Phases. Late Phases was another movie from Nick D'Amici, who he was the guy who was who was Mister in Stakeland.
Okay, yeah.
Incredible film. He plays this old army war vet who he's gone blind, and he's in this old age home or it's old age community, and there's a werewolf that lives in the old age community that's been picking off all of the the tenants. And the thing is, they're a bunch, it's like, they're old people, who cares? And they keep blaming it on like animal attacks. But what happens is this old dude, he ends up witnessing his neighbor getting killed. Like he's blind, but he's got military training, so he kind of he runs into the thing, and he could tell, okay, this isn't an animal, this is a werewolf. So he knows that within the next month, when it's a full moon, the werewolf is going to come to kill him. So he spends the whole movie preparing for the werewolf to come and get him. And
that's awesome.
It's so good. Like he's like D'Amici is just amazing, because he's an actor that I recently discovered within the past few years. He's somebody who I've seen, like I'm always like, that guy's really good. But then like in the past few years, I'm like, wow, this guy just puts so much into his movies, and he's incredible in this. He's so believable, and he's just he really is like, he basically, when he gets put in this old age home, he's basically like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to die. Like the movie opens with him picking out his headstone.
Wow.
Like it's really dark, and it's just such an excellent movie.
I'm excited about seeing that. Thank you, man. I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad I snuck that in there, man. Jeez.
Yeah, I think if you have Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, I know it was up there. I don't know if it's still up there, but take a look there if you have it. If not, definitely give it a rent or whatnot. It's so freaking good. Like I'm gonna do I'm probably around October. I think I might do a video on that one. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that. Thank you, man. And see, because you mentioned him and he was Mr. Stakeland 2. Anything about that?
Stakeland 2, I haven't. I think they're going to. I think it's premiering in. Excuse me. I think it's appearing in October on Sci-Fi Channel, which is kind of odd. But
really,
yeah, I think they partially bankrolled the movie, which is why it's going to be on Sci-Fi. But I think what I might do, because I don't know if I want to watch it with like commercials and stuff, I might wait until after the premiere and see because they'll put it out on like home video, on Blu-ray or whatever. So I might just wait and then buy it. But I think it's really cool that they were able to make the movie like, it was like, hey, there's going to be a sequel, and guess what? It's already done,
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
there's none of this like, oh, you're going to make a sequel, and then like months down the road, you hear more info, or then the trailer spoils the whole thing, or so. I think that's kind of cool, because they did that with the new Blair Witch movie. They filmed it under a fake name, and then they're like, hey, here's the Blair Witch, and it'll be out in a month, and everybody's like, oh my god, So
I don't know how I feel about that one. I just felt like it was kind of too soon. But
have you Have you seen the guy who directed it, Adam Wingard? He did You're Next, and he did The Guest, and both movies were like, You're Next was my number 2 movie of 2013, and then The Guest was my number 2 movie of 2014. So I have high hopes.
Okay, here's to hoping, man.
Blair Witch movie. I'm super excited because both those movies are amazing, and he's a really good director. So I think that they've got some gold here on their hands.
Yeah, shucks.
Yeah. So we'll see in 3 weeks.
Yeah, you know what? And if it's not, folks, you can tweet at him on Twitter, and you can leave messages on the YouTube channel. You could be like, "Hey, man, you lied. This movie sucks."
Oh, believe me, I get enough of that. I get. I made the daring mistake to say that Super Mario Brothers was good, and I get so many people that are like, "Hey, man, I really like your videos, but you're so fucking wrong." I'm like, look, dude, you can't agree with me on everything.
And everything, because you know what? It's so funny that you mentioned that, because when I saw that video and I heard you, I was just like, he's out of his mind. I was just like, I completely disagree. I was like, he's out of his mind. And my wife, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I was like, the guy, Good Bad Flicks, she said the Super Mario Brothers was good. And she's just like, she's like, isn't it? I'm like, no, baby, this movie's not good. I'm like, this movie's not good at all. Like, it's not really good at all. Dude, but once again, before we get out of here, I always like to ask my guests to share their social media stuff with everyone. So let everyone know where they can find you on the social media, man, on Facebook, Twitter, whatever.
You can find me. I am all over the place. You can find me on Good Bad Flicks on Twitter. You can find me Good Bad Flicks on Facebook. I also work with The Escapists, so you can find me at escapistmagazine.com. I have my own website, Good Bad Flicks. I also have a Twitch channel where I play good bad video games, and I have a lot of fun with that. Which is also, you can find me Good Bad Flicks on Twitch, and of course Good Bad Flicks on YouTube. That's where you primarily can find me. It's easier. Usually, it's easier to like tweet at me if you have a question or something, because it's just I can tweet you a quick answer. But a lot of people will go on YouTube and leave these diatribes. They'll ask me these gigantic 15-layered questions. I'm like, I'm like, you do realize I get like so many of the I try to answer as much as I can, but some people get angry, and I'm like, look, dude, I got like a wife and a kid, and like I can't like
real life.
Like you know how many and I'm not unappreciative of all the comments and stuff that come in, but it's just like I can't. If I had to answer every single thing, I would have to hire somebody.
You would never have a life. Yeah, you wouldn't have a life. That's too much.
Mm-hmm. So, but don't take distress at that. If you do want to contact me or ask me something or tell me how right or wrong I am about something, please do.
Awesome. And as always, folks, I am your humble host, Milton, and you can find me anywhere on social media at Slovenly Gamer on Twitter, Slovenly Gamer on Facebook, and you can also go over to slovenlygamer.com, and I'm also on Instagram as Slovenly Gamer. And in terms of listening, if you're listening on iTunes, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and also rate the show. And you can also find the new show for everyone, for all my new listeners. If you're not an Apple person, make sure you're going over to Libsyn, to the Libsyn page, and that's slovenlygamer.libsyn.com, and you can find it there. As always, all this information is going to be in the show notes. Cecil, thank you so much for hanging out with me, man. I had an awesome time hanging out with you. I learned a lot about movies and stuff like that, and I cannot wait for those new videos.
Great. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
And we're out. Yeah, and we're out of here, people. Peace.